Elite member list of the far-right extremist group Oath Keepers. They are accused of playing a significant role in the January 6th domestic terror attack on the U.S. Capitol. Has the names of hundreds of U.S. law enforcement officers, elected officials, members of the military. When we talk about law enforcement, folks, we're talking about sheriffs, police chiefs, and others. The Anti-Defamation League's Center on Extremism sifted through more than 38,000 names on the Elite Oath Keepers membership list and identified more than 370 people it believes currently work in law enforcement agencies, more than 100 who are presently members of the U.S. military, and about 80 who are running or serve in public office. Some of the names the ADL discovered: Thomas Rummel, Sanders County, Montana Sheriff; Joe Wright, Collin County, Texas. Collin County, y'all, that's Plano, Texas. That's Dallas, okay? Constable Bradley Rogers, Elkhart County, Indiana County Commissioner. Wendy Rogers, Arizona State Senator. Phil Jensen, South Dakota State Representative. Bob Giuda, New Hampshire State Senator. Idaho State Representative Chad Christensen. Alaska State Representative David Eastman. Major Eben Bratcher, Yuma County, Arizona Sheriff's Office. Lieutenant Philip Mercurio, City of Pittsburgh, Sergeant Michael Lynch, Anaheim, California Police Department. The list goes on and on and on. This here, greatly significant, Reese. And here's the deal. We've known this for quite some time. This is not the first time we've known this. We did the story here where the group uncovered this private Facebook group of officers from all around the country, St. Louis and Philadelphia, other places, where they were making racist remarks, sexist remarks in this private Facebook chat room. We know it was in San Francisco where officers were busted for making racist remarks. The Cincinnati police officer just fired for using the N-word. Chicago cops using the N-word. There were Orlando officers that were fired for racist comments as well. The fact of the matter is, in law enforcement in this country, the military in this country, there are racists, there are individuals who are part of these far-right militia groups. And it was interesting because one of these sheriffs said, oh, yeah, I was a member, but I left because I felt their language was too incendiary. Really? Really? So between the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys and the rest of these groups, they're all the same.
Absolutely. But what it really goes to is the fact that these people are not just sitting around having a beer, being buddies. These people want institutional power. And that's what we have to be concerned about, because these are people that are running for office. These are people that are police officers, people with badges that can go around killing people or harassing people, and just having their way. And so I think it just goes to show, again, how we need to be in these institutions as well, because I don't want a bunch of white overseers, whether it's cops, prosecutors, judges, or elected officials. And so, they're leaving no stone unturned in this battle for white supremacy, in this battle for white nationalism, in this battle for the government and power, every facet of power, military, police, elected. That's the main facets of power that you have. And they have every single part covered. We need to make sure that we are diligent about keeping them out of these spaces, and we need to make sure that we're diligent about getting into these spaces and holding our own damn power.
Greg, you had members of Congress who were highly critical of Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin because he was trying to rid the military of these racists. And these fools objected. They wouldn't even vote for it. He was trying to rid them of these white supremacists, these anti-Semitic folk, and Republicans were like, we're too woke. Why are you focusing on this? Really? So that tells you right there who today's Republican Party sides with.
Yeah, and unfortunately, today's Democratic Party, too. And today is a day I think we are reminded of that, even as this 96-year-old Queen of England goes off to meet her ancestors. And I hope on her journey that it's peaceful. And then when she gets there, they have a segregated heaven so that she don't run into the millions of non-white people who she ruled over for 70 years. But there will be people who stop and say, well, we should, I mean, she was the queen. We'll just pay our respects. Okay, it's the same thing. Let me make the connection. And what Reese said is very important for us to understand. Institutions that do not protect you are not institutions that serve you. When I say the Democratic Party too, I don't mean the Democratic Party is like the white nationalist party. What I mean is, unless you're going to take action against white nationalism, you are supporting soft white nationalism. There is no protocol and there is no decorum when someone has their foot on your neck. These white nationalists are determined, as Reese said, to rule or ruin. They have weaponized beyond the paddle rollers who are in uniform. And again, we're obsessed with uniforms because of the slave mentality we've been given. That's why some people gonna cry crocodile tears when they see Charles III, the new king, in a uniform, and everybody in uniforms. They just love watching uniform. We have been trained to respect the uniform. Well, we should have no respect for the uniform. And that includes people who ostensibly say they are on our side, who do not take action and break the back of white nationalism. Now, these oath keepers, we heard the sheriff there in Chesterfield County, Virginia, Sheriff Stewart, evoke First Amendment rights. They have First Amendment rights. Understand the strategy now is to use the First Amendment to weaponize every white nationalist in the country. This is why they say, I'm not giving you a cake if you gay. This is why they say, I get to come out and scream in your face and spit in your face, and you can't do anything about it. Take it back to Reconstruction and the Cruikshank case, when they murdered black people in Louisiana and then said, well, it wasn't really race. It was them in a political assembly. The point I'm trying to make is this. The Oath Keepers are not criminals. They are supported and abetted by the structure of this government at every level. Black people are not safe in the United States of America. We're not only hunted, as Reese said, by those in uniform. We are not protected by those who ostensibly claim to be against them, because when these white nationalists and their full-throated white nationalism stand up in legislatures and refuse to do anything about it, well, then everybody else says, well, we'll just have to keep fighting. We'll just keep trying to persuade them. We're fighting for the soul of America. It has no soul. Either you break the back of white nationalism, or this country is going to explode, because people will finally get the message that the only thing we can count on to protect ourselves is us. And at that point, you don't have a country. And perhaps you shouldn't have a country.
Erica, the reason, and I'll explain this here, the reason I chose this particular photo, and I picked the photo, because what this image shows is, give me I want to see the image. This is what I want to see. Look at this here. This is a white man in front of the Capitol, and his arms are outstretched. And what he is actually saying is, this is ours. That image right there of his head tossed back and arm, this is ours. And that's what January 6th was all about. That's what this book is about. That's what these Oath Keepers is about. That's what the Proud Boys are about. And that's why the Republican Party is aligned with these people, because they are their voters. That's what Charlottesville was about. And we can go on and on and on. Their entire being, this is ours. And I play that clip all the time from The Good Shepherd. And I play it for a reason, because just that scene tells us exactly who these people are. When Joe Pesci says, we the Italians got this, the Jews got this, he uses the N-word to describe black people. We couldn't even be called, we would call the N-word. He said they got their music. He said, what do y'all people have? And Matt Damon's Wasp character says, we've got the United States of America. The rest of you are just visiting. That right there, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, I can remember the Wall Street Journal. I believe it was back in 2013, and on the cover, it was a profile of the first Daddy Bush, the last of the Wasps. And so it was, another kind of telltale sign of what has always been, which is this really need for raw, naked, as we've said on this show so many times before, power. And that's what I think the power behind your book, Roland. I'm so excited about the hardcover. We're getting that next week. And then Reese's second book, The Must Race Watches. All of this is coming at a time where people really do need to sit themselves in the reality of what's happening. The reality of what's happening is, we look at Donovan Lewis, and we saw his mother speaking before that crowd. Usually when there's a black body that has been assassinated by the police, we're normally looking at Black mothers and Black fathers. We were looking at a mother that was not Black. All of to let you know that white supremacy or white nationalism, excuse me, because it's not supreme, but white nationalism is really only interested in power and those that will bend to it. And so you have those components that are willing to bend to it to make sure it stays intact, one of which is law enforcement. You know, lest we forget that in 2006, the FBI had a report that talked about the insurgence of white nationalism, folks who were in local police departments, in the military. And then we had in 2020, around this same month, there were a series, I think it was a 4-part congressional hearing that happened around local police units. And what was the big topic? It was talking about confronting white supremacy in local police departments. And so that whole Reese asked who gonna check me, boo, that is their stock and trade. They've not been checked. Administrative leave is not checked. That's our money, making sure that they still continue to get a check. And so until there's something done to ensure that these fools know that if you even think about it, if you get out of line, there is a price to be paid. This is what we're going to continue to see. We know that they make sure that they stay involved in politics on the local, the state, the congressional level. Their master, the son of a Klansman, has really invigorated them in a way where they really have become one with the fact that if you're really going to take power from us, you're going to have to try to grasp it. And so another system erects. And so as we continue to look at all of these different acts of violence, as we continue to see people become more unhinged to really let you know who they are, just believe them and act accordingly. And for me, that would also ensure that people who are actually talking about not participating in the midterms or the upcoming elections that we have, if you don't think it's going to get worse, give me your cell phone, give me all sense of security, and give me your house keys. And we'll talk about it in another 60 days or a couple of years.
Teach.
The thing that for me that jumps out here, Reese, that I really need people to understand, and the reason I wrote the book because I wanted to connect the dots. When you take these Oath Keepers, Proud Boys, then you take the attacks on the 1619 Project, then you see the attacks on African studies, Afro-American studies, then when you see the attacks on critical race theory, then you see the attacks on diversity, equity, inclusion, the attacks on multiculturalism. Now how the right attaches woke or wokeism to everything. They can't even define what the hell woke is. But again, what they want to do is they want to characterize anything non-white as a threat to America. There was a poll that was done. It shows that a significant number of white Americans, Republicans, believe that discrimination against whites is equal or greater than that of African Americans. And that literally, and I saw this. I saw it, I mean, with Obama wasn't even in the White House 30 days. I said to John Avlon, we are living in the beginning of white minority resistance. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying that because I don't think, Reese, I don't think our politicians, I don't think a lot of African Americans are fully understanding what the hell I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. I don't think people really are comprehending how dangerous this is. Right now, you have the Supreme Court that has decided to take a case out of North Carolina where Republicans are asserting that the state legislatures can overrule the will of the people and they don't have to follow any voting laws whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And you got this guy, Leo Terry, who led the Federalist Society, and this billionaire has given him $1.6 billion to spend any way he wants to. Yep. And they have filed an amicus brief with the Supreme Court endorsing these ideas. This thing is so dangerous that a group representing 50 of the nation's state Supreme Court chief justices issued their own warning to the Supreme Court not to rule in its favor. So what these white nationalists are trying to do, and I need everybody who's watching, who's listening, to understand the depths of this. What they want to do is they want to freeze in place any gains, strip away, take away, because they see what the numbers look like. And let me say this to my white Latino friends. You're not white. And so we got to talk to white Latinos who are operating with a white mindset and saying, well, I'm going to choose with the white folks versus Latino folks, and understand they ain't riding with you either. Mm-hmm. This is a threat to our children's children. And so when I listen to all these yahoos, these black folks who are following some of these old ignorant people out here, I ain't voting for this, I ain't voting for that. Trust me, Donald Trump told you after 16, he told you thank you for not voting. Mm-hmm. Because what they want to put in power, they are going to do.
Yeah.
And if we don't participate, we just making their job easier. And folks then gonna realize, oh hell, what did I do? Right. And now it's too late.
Right. I mean, this might be the last election where this across the country we have national citizenship, where we have state citizenship even. I mean, if you look at the state of women now, there's no national citizenship for women in this country because depending on where you live, you have a different set of rights. So that's the end of American citizenship for women. In Texas, you cannot get an abortion for any reason except for saving the life of a mother. But you have people like Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania who want to eliminate even an exception for the life of a mother. Same with Herschel Walker in Georgia. Same with Marco Rubio in Florida. So they're not done yet. They're playing for keeps, and they are tackling every single issue. They're tackling defunding public education. They're tackling stripping you of your health care. They're tackling women's reproductive rights, which is birth control is next. They're tackling the citizenship of the LGBTQ community. But a part of that is also tackling consensual sex between adults who are not who are having sex without the purpose of reproduction. Like, I don't think that people really understand how insidious what they're trying to do is, but it starts with our own citizenship. It starts with gerrymandering us out of being able to influence our elections, which they've done in Texas, which they've done in Florida and other places. That's what the North Carolina, and then the next part is getting these election deniers who will set aside the results of the elections. That's what they're trying to do in Pennsylvania. That's what they're doing with these Secretary of State races. There is every part that they're trying to do, but what Republicans are smart at is they throw out this really incendiary, really inflammatory stuff. So we're talking about woke, and they're talking about banning trans athletes like anybody gives a damn about a 15-year-old trans kid playing volleyball or swimming. And they throw out all of these things when if you look at the record, that's where the real danger is. I mean, obviously their rhetoric is dangerous, but when they want to deny your existence and your humanity in this country and they want to overrule that, that is a big fucking deal. And I want people to quit sleeping on what's happening. Because this is it. This is really it. And the polls might be looking a little better for Democrats, but this ain't over until people vote. And then if you don't vote now, then if you have a Republican governor in Pennsylvania, if you have a Republican governor that wins in Michigan, if you have a Republican governor that wins in Wisconsin, it don't goddamn matter what we vote for in 2024 because they can overturn the Electoral College votes, even if Biden, Harris, or whoever runs for the Democrats wins by millions more votes like Hillary Clinton did in 2016. So this is it, people. And I know y'all tired of hearing that, But that's the reality of it. And if you don't believe me, you can pick up my book, okay? Because I'm talking about it in both of my books about what these people are planning to do with their power should they get it.
And I'm telling you, Greg, that there are people. I deal with these people every single day, and they come with the usual BS. Oh man, you sell out for the Democrats. You a Democratic shield. You own the plantation, folk. I'm trying to tell you, Mitch McConnell knows very well who the Oath Keepers vote for.
Absolutely.
Marco Rubio, he knows who the Proud Boys vote for.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you right now, Ron Johnson, he knows who the white nationalists vote for.
Absolutely.
They know that is their base. The Confederate flag waving folk. It's only one party today that defends Confederate monuments. It's the Republican Party. It's only one party that has actually made voter suppression a part of its plank. Let's just be straight up honest. And their whole deal, look, and I warn these folks this. Now, I remember when I did a panel at the CBC, and hell, that may have been 8 years ago. Hell, it could have been 10 years ago. And they were talking about, and Cheryl Eiffel was on it, Kristen Clark was on it. Actually, I think he's now in the cabinet, the Biden cabinet. He was Secretary of State of California. They kept talking about black and brown. I said about voter suppression. I said, y'all. I said, y'all better stop overlooking white folks. They have moved a voting location off the campus of Texas A&M. Y'all, Texas A&M, my alma mater, is conservative as hell. But why are they moving it? Because they don't want them white kids voting. They see what's happening. So people need to understand this thing is so deep, and they are literally meeting, planning. They are funding this thing. The reason these white conservatives hate George Soros, because he got they type of money. That's why they brand any progressive DA a George Soros DA. So they ain't never had a problem with Sheldon Adelson before he died, giving billions of dollars to the Republican Party. But oh, you're a George Soros DA. Well, I dare say wear it with pride. What these people want to unleash on this country, Greg, and put it in historical terms, because I love these people who keep saying we ain't never seen this before. Anybody, if y'all see anybody say, slap the shit out of them. Because if anybody says we've never seen this before, that's proving to me somebody who ain't never, ever read history. This is nothing different than the period after Reconstruction, after the Great Compromise of 1877, after they crushed that movement in North Carolina between the broke white folks and the freed slaves. That's what this all is. This is history repeating itself because they are afraid of what happens when we truly get freedom.
Absolutely, Roland. And that applies to anyone who is looking for freedom. Again, and for folks who might think, oh, this is your shields for the Democratic Party, listen very carefully. In fact, if you're not already subscribed to the Black Star Network, please do that. And tell other people. Everybody here probably already is. So you need to tell 10, 20, 1,000 other people to subscribe, because this is the only place you will hear things that might be mentioned other places or even discussed other places, discussed in this way. And trust me, this is the only conversation that matters, because to evoke Elijah Muhammad, and Paul's here to note the passing on the 27th of August of Eben Muhammad, who was the chief spokesperson for Minister Louis Farrakhan, friend of mine, very important sister, lawyer out of Columbus, Ohio, by the way, who made transition. And I think about the Nation of Islam when they said that when this country falls apart, it's going to be the shock of the hour. The shock of the hour, they call it in the Nation of Islam. So all the other places having these conversations, when it falls apart, they're going to be shocked. No one will be shocked in the Black Star Network, because we've been trying to tell y'all. And Reese, I appreciate you framing this in the way that you did as it relates to, the rule of law. See, what's really on trial in this process is the rule of law. It isn't a matter of whether we will survive, but it's a matter of who will survive in America, to quote Gil Scott-Heron. So, Roland, when you say that the Democrats are not for maintaining the statues, well, I wonder, because you see, many of the statues in the South, as you know, are on private property. When I watched you interview the great Fred Gray, last month. You know, in the conversation you all were having, he talked about with great pride that they're going to get one of those Confederate monuments down there in Montgomery, and that the Fred Gray Road and Rosa Parks Road, Martin Luther King now abut that public land. They can do that. But here's the problem. Many of those Confederate monuments are on private property. And the problem we have with the Democratic Party is they draw the line because they think that there's a rule of law in this country at the First Amendment. So they say, well, we can't do anything about those on private property because they have the First Amendment right. Well, sir, you've mistaken the concept of rule of law for white nationalism. They're hiding behind the First Amendment. The same thing with gerrymandering, as you just raised. Again, you're not going to see this anywhere else. This Rachel Maddow, Joy Reid, I'll just start naming the names. It really doesn't matter. You're not going to hear this conversation, even though they know full well. Now, Ellie Mastal may slip in there and say a few of these things. Then they kiki and keep going because they think they live in a country and they don't. The point is this. When you start talking about gerrymandering, the Supreme Court has ruled that there's a difference between justiciability, meaning the ability to bring a case in court, have standing, and have a constitutional issue at stake, between political gerrymandering and racial gerrymandering. Those who say, I don't agree with these white nationalists in Wisconsin who have so gerrymandered the Wisconsin legislature and voting for it that you can have a majority in the state vote for one party and the other party still have a majority, they will say, but I respect the courts because, you know, this is not a justiciable issue. Once you say I respect the courts, you have tested the rule of law, because here's what is at stake. When the white nationalists are in power, as you have said, Roland, as you have written, they don't have a rule of law. Their rule is rule or ruin. So Judge Eileen Cannon, that fool down there, 41 years old, that Trump put on the bench in the Southern District of Florida, she has issued a ruling saying that I don't care about no Department of Justice. I don't care about no Federal Bureau of Investigation. All I know is I'm going to stand between the rule of law and my master who appointed me on the recommendation of Marco Rubio, Donald Trump. And I'm going to say there should be a special master appointed to do something that is unprecedented in the history of federal investigations of criminals like Donald Trump, to go back through the documents and figure out how I can save my master. Now, all of the lawyers, including that criminal Bill Barr, who was the attorney general carrying out this foolishness when he was in power, have come out screaming bloody murder about Judge Cannon's rule. But she's a 41-year-old, as you mentioned, appointed on the bench, came through the Federal Society in 2004 when she was at Duke University Law School, and is now on the bench making up the law. There is no rule of law, finally. On this Black Star Network, we interviewed a guy, Richard Kreitner, who writes for The Nation magazine, wrote a book a couple of years ago called Break It Up. He says the central theme in American history is not union, but disillusion. And then year by year, as you say, highlighting Reconstruction, but going back to the beginning when the 13 colonies broke with George III, who came to the throne after Elizabeth I. By the way, the one that just died was Elizabeth II, just to tie together these white nationalists. And then the guy who's on the throne now, Charles III, his predecessor, Charles II, was the one that signed all the warrants that brought us ass over here to speak English. But at any rate, those 13 colonies broke with Great Britain, and that was the only thing they agreed on. When the minute they started the United States, the New Englanders wanted to get away. The South wanted to get away. And then he follows it through the history of the United States. George Washington, when he left office, he was terrified. He said, because once we push west of the Alleghenies, all those places are going to create their own country. You get to the Civil War, South Carolina left because they have been trying to leave since the beginning. And the only thing kept this thing stitched together are people who look like you and me, because we were in enslavement. And the minute we saw a crack and a chance to advance our interests and got a few guns, we ended the damn Civil War because the South was looking on the verge of winning. Remember, they didn't have to conquer New York. They just had to keep the North out of the South. And Gettysburg is in Pennsylvania. It is not in Georgia. The point is the South was on the verge of winning the war. And winning for them looked like secession. And then they were going to link to Mexico, link to Latin America, and create a whole new confederacy. My point is this. From that moment, Reconstruction, to where we are right now, it has been non-white people, chiefly black people. And by the way, white people do include, as you say, Roland, Spanish, because Eileen Cannon came from Colombia. She was born in Colombia. Her mother is one of them Cubans that left Castro's Cuba in 1959. So she's white too, and she just happens to speak Spanish. But the only thing that's kept this together is people saying, we don't give a damn about y'all. But if you believe in your own rule of law, we can force you to stitch this thing together long enough for this to get some room to operate. But when this thing collapses, it doesn't mean that we're going to die. Don't be scared. as you say, Roland, people say, y'all shield for Democratic Party, Republican Party. People don't like me. Some of my friends who are on the radical left say I told them to shut up, and they mad about that still to this day. So I'm not going to say shut up.
I will. Shut up.
Well, no, I just say, as John Henry Clark said, be smart. Don't get mad, get smart. Understand that if you don't go out there and vote, you're not propping up a system. You're trying to work in your own interest, because if you don't, and they do get in charge, again, they've already lined up the agenda. You see these white nationalists saying, when we take the House, we're going to investigate Biden. We're going to investigate the Attorney General.
Fauci, everybody.
Fauci, all of them, right? So when they do that, here is the danger. Here's the danger. All my friends that say, well, they're all the same. No problem. See, philosophically, I agree with you enough, but here's why I know we disagree. I know y'all ain't got the heart to kick in the door waving the 4-4. But I tell you who does have the heart to kick in the door waving the 4-4. All them people who may not have voted, but when they realize that there is no rule of law to protect them, and the only thing gonna stand between them and the grave is a strap, this thing is going to fall completely apart. Because if you don't try to fix it through the political process, the only other alternative is revolution. And most people are not revolutionaries, but if you kick in the door on their mama, then you ain't got enough police. And I don't want to see that happen. I'm not cheering for that. I'm not expecting that. I'm saying voting is one way to perhaps forestall that moment. But what is inevitable is there's going to be, in the words of Lerone Bennett Jr., confrontation in black and white. The only question is, do we want to shape the terms now, or do we want to shape the terms later?
All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Can you believe the nerve of these Republicans? They only want to block progress for our community. They talk about cutting Medicare and Social Security. They played politics with veterans' health care. They voted against the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act and funding for our HBCUs, and against lowering prescription drug costs for our seniors. These Republicans keep trying hard to stand in the way, but President Biden, Vice President Harris, and Democrats won't let them. They are delivering for us. The Democratic National Committee is responsible for the content of this advertising.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.